War in 2.
Okay. My name is Cissie Hamilton.
I'm Jerry Hamilton.
And this is Holly.
My first deployment was at the beginning of the Iraq War in 2003, and I was in Mosul, the northern part of Iraq, and I worked on a system that detected where enemy indirect fire was coming from and where it was going to land. That was 2003 to 2004. 2005 to 2006, I was at Bob St. Michael in Mahmudiya, which was part of what they called the Triangle of Death. 2007 to 2008, I was in Baghdad, again doing the same job. I ETS'd out of active Army in 2009 and immediately went to work for CCOM, which is part of DOD, and I deployed with them on a solo mission to Kandahar. And then after that deployment, all my symptoms and everything seemed to get so bad that I could no longer work. My equipment is a high priority target, so we were mortared a lot on a weekly, if not daily basis sometimes. So I was never hit with shrapnel or hurt in that way from any explosions, but I was in a lot of blast waves, which could have rattled something loose. It could be from the burn pits that they had dug really close to our equipment. So close we had to ask them to move it because the smoke was clogging our system. Other things that maybe, I don't know if they're considered an injury or an illness, but the shots that they would give us, the anthrax shots and different things before we would go over on 2 deployments, a week after both times I had all these shots, I had to go to the emergency room with real bad pneumonia and even deployed really bad sick. So in my records, they're not allowed to give me any more shots. So that may be part of it. And
Well, they say that he has PTSD, and that's the only diagnosis that they've given. We've had outside doctors look at him, and we were told that he has dystonia, dementia, and we've been told by the VA that he does not have a TBI, although we don't feel like he's ever been tested for a TBI. But whenever I look at the VA's records on e-benefits, it claims that he has a TBI. So I'm really not sure what they're doing about that, but I feel like he has a TBI. But I'm no doctor. But with the last military deployment with the Army, he wasn't transitioning like he had prior. He just stayed mad. And to me, it seemed like he'd spent too much time with the boys mentality and was hateful and real sharp and had no compassion. He seemed very standoffish, had nothing to do with our children. He really didn't like anyone, none of us. And we had always been a really close family, and I could just see he was slipping away quickly. And no one would help us. And he had gone to some commanders, I believe. I don't know what all he did on his own, trying to get some assistance, and no one would listen. So I just assumed that this was going to kind of wear off. This was just a transitioning period, and he'd just gone too many times. And so when he got the job with DOD, and things seemed to be looking up a little bit, he wasn't working with them for very long before he deployed. And then when he came home, I noticed that he wasn't going to work. Money was being spent that I didn't know where it was going. They started calling from work because they didn't know where he was, and I thought he was at work. Come to find out, he'd been hiding out in parking lots because he couldn't remember how to get to work, which was the same base he'd been driving to for 9 years. And so he just didn't know how to do his job anymore. Papers that were coming across his desk he didn't understand anymore, and he should have understood them. And it was terrifying to him because what his job was could affect many lives over there. And even when he was sick, they were still in the hospital. DOD's calling me saying he's going to deploy pretty quick. You know, we need to get this thing figured out. What's going to happen? And I said, there's no way my husband's deploying. There's no way. And they said, well, we need timesheets. We need this. We need that. And I said, well, what do you expect me to do? He can't even figure out how to get to work. They said, well, you're going to have to drive him to work. You're going to have to do this for him. So I ended up having to drive him to work, go in the building, sit in his office, and figure out how to fill out his timesheets and whatever else paperwork that the DOD wanted him to do and he couldn't do. They expected me to do it for him. So I did it. I didn't have a choice. If I didn't do it, my husband, we weren't going to get a paycheck. So that was pretty much the last time we went up there. We had a fight with DOD. They wanted to fire my husband. I was told by their lawyers that my husband was not to come back on post because his mental state was concerning to them and they felt that he could be a danger. Well, they weren't helping me. If he was a danger to possibly them, why were they not helping me try to figure out what was wrong with him? So I was told by their lawyer that since he's not allowed on post, we will be holding a court on whether or not he can have his job or keep his job or get some type of benefits from this job, but we would be doing this in the local post office. And I said, I will not be doing that to my husband. And that was the last time I spoke to them. So whatever happened with that, I don't know, because Jerry and I decided that that was a fight we couldn't take on at the moment. Our main concern was his health. And my family was in shambles. You want to take it?
The VA says that all the movements, the vocal tics, everything that you see, which is a lot calmer here in Colorado than Tennessee, they say that it all is post-traumatic stress. They say all this is manifesting from stress from over there, which I don't, I mean, I'm sure I have my bit of post-traumatic stress, but I don't think it's doing this.
We have seen a primary care provider, Dr. Walkley. She seemed extremely genuinely concerned. She stated that this was completely out of her realm. She had no idea what this could be. And I believe she was some type of internal medicine doctor. And she said she had no clue. And she said, would you like to see a neurologist? And I said, please, we'd like to start fresh here in Colorado with a new neurologist. That was back in July. We have yet to speak to Dr. Walkley again. We don't have another appointment scheduled with her. Why, I don't know. We don't have anything set up with neurology. I called the other day to the VA and asked the nurse, you know, what is happening with this neurology appointment? She stated that there's nothing on the books for a neurology appointment for Jerry. And I said, well, I'm looking at a paper that states that she was going to put in for a neurology consult, and she said that the doctor must have overlooked that and that they would give me a call on Friday, which was yesterday, and I have yet to hear back from them. Can I say about Tennessee real quick is we had a doctor, Dr. Reagan, and he was a psychiatrist, and Jerry saw him for once a month for about 1.5 years, and he's the only doctor that Jerry went to once a month, and it consisted of me begging him, can you please help me figure out what this is? And I had been asking since 2010 for the neurologist, Dr. Fang, to send my husband to the Patrick, which is Parkinson's and Movement Research Clinic within the VA. There's only 7 of them in the US. And they have refused every time. So in 2011, I finally asked Dr. Reagan, will you please help me? And he pulled it up on his computer and he said, how come you have not gone to this? And I said, I've been begging them for years to send us. Can you please help me get my husband there? He said, most definitely. He said, I will put in a consult and I should know something by the next appointment. This is in January. The I left there very excited because he said, you know, you guys should have already gone here. So I was like, this is awesome. Finally, someone's listening. And when we came back in February, we no longer have Dr. Reagan. He has been fired from the VA. We have a new doctor. And the new doctor says, well, what brings you in? I can see you haven't been here since 2013. I said, excuse me, sir? We come every single month. Where the hell is my doctor? And he said, well, I don't know. I don't know what happens to the doctors when they're not here, but I'm sure that he's here somewhere. Well, come to find out, I heard from someone else within the building that he was no longer employed with the VA. Why? I don't know. I think because he was going to help us. And I know it seems crazy, but whenever we left there, I got some paperwork from a printout that states if you were a no-show or all this, you know, about your appointments. And whenever we found out the doctor was no longer there, I got a printout, and on that it says incomplete. And it doesn't say that anywhere else within his appointments. And so I asked the lady, what does this mean? And she said, well, it means you didn't show up. And I said, well, you know me, and we show up every month. She said, yeah, I know. And she checked, and she said, I have you as checked in. She said, let me find out what this means. She told me that it meant there was no documentation entered by the doctor. Well, I find that hard to believe. I sat there and watched him type in for the consult. Well, after they found out that I had made copies and was throwing a huge fit about that, the Dr. Reagan's records show up a few months later. Now, how is this possible when he's no longer employed? I have tracked Dr. Reagan down, and I have called him and left a message for him to contact myself or my husband. He will not return my calls. Try to Facebook friend him. Won't accept. I've tried everything, and I want to know what the hell happened. And oh, we were told twice that Jerry was tested for depleted uranium in Nashville. Come to find out, when we asked Dr. Reagan, where's the test results? He says, well, I don't know. They're not here. They're not in. I've got all your other records, all your other lab from the urine test, 24-hour collection, but there's nothing there for the depleted uranium. And what did he say? This is the one thing that kind of got us, that you would have to...
No, well, the first thing when I asked about depleted uranium, he said, oh, well, that would have already been out of your system. It's got like a 1,000,000-year half-life, for one thing. But then when we ask again about the depleted uranium and the urinalysis, he goes, oh, well, you'll have to go to NASA or somewhere for that. Just not even showing respect is terrible.
Yeah, you just never know what you're going to get from those doctors. They may be nice to you one minute and then not next time. But whenever I spoke to, prior to moving here, I spoke to this guy named Rod Green, and he is with the Gulf War Registry out of Golden. And I told him about the urine analysis for the depleted uranium. He has brain shocks. You okay? So he said, more than likely, they did not test. He said, we will do that. We will test when you get here. Well, I was very excited about it. We went to the Gulf War Registry testing last month. And when we got there, all they wanted to talk about was whether or not my husband was a diabetic. Well, my husband's not diabetic. And what the hell does that have to do with the war? Doctor said, well, nothing. I said, exactly. So can we start testing for shit that you guys did to my husband? Because this is getting ridiculous. It's okay. And so, needless to say, he lied on a lot of his records, stated that Jerry's reflexes, everything was fine. He ran across this, he said that Jerry even stated that he felt he was in, what was the term? Pretty good health, and I thought, what the heck? And then in the Gulf War Registry documents, he states that he only refers to Jerry being deployed twice, and once was like in 2005, and I think once in 2009. And then he also says that he tried to do certain exams on my husband, and my husband refused. We were never refused. I mean, he never refused any exam. They never offered any exam. And whenever I asked the doctor, are you going to test him for depleted uranium? He said, we don't do that here. I said, that's why I'm here. And he said, well, you'll have to ask the guy out front. So when we got out to the front, I was pretty pissed. And I said, where do we go to get the depleted uranium testing? Well, he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, why are you asking me? I said, because the doctor told me to, and he's standing right behind you. Why don't you ask him? And the doctor said, well, yeah, but can you tell her where that happens? And he's like, I don't know. And I said, what about testing for the anthrax, the squalene antibodies? How about some of that? Let's do I need to run down all this? Well, the doctor had no idea what squalene even was.
Huh.
And squalene is something that was put in the anthrax inoculations. It's, from what I understand, anthrax is an Army concoction. It's not, it was never USDA approved. And so this guy acted as though he knows nothing about squalene and nothing about depleted uranium testing. So needless to say, when we left there, he stated that we could either do the blood test or not do the blood test. And since he accused my husband, the video that I placed on Facebook, he stated that looked like LSD to him. And I said, are you kidding me? And he said, no, it looks like LSD. You ever done any LSD? And well, by that time, Jerry was pretty ticked off. And I said, look, mister, ever since I put this thing on Facebook, I've had other people come out of the woodwork stating that they have pretty much the same symptoms as my husband.
Okay.
They just don't have the seizures to the extent my husband does. I said, so don't sit here and tell me this is not war-related. I said, because I know it is. The only difference between them and my husband is you've given them some bogus-ass diagnosis that they're buying into, and I'm not buying it. I said, that's the only difference. Been in no programs. The only thing that we've done is come together as a family and accept that this is something we're going to have to live with and fight together. At the beginning, they told me Jerry was faking the VA. They said there's nothing wrong with him. He's faking. Well, I didn't understand what the hell was going on, so this made me angry, not just at them, but at him, because I don't get it. And so once I finally accepted the fact that there is something actually wrong with my husband, and he's not faking, and he's not just being an asshole, that there is something medically wrong with him, and he's not just being mean to me because he wants to be, he's being mean and angry because he doesn't understand what's going on with him either. And once I could accept that and push the VA to the side and quit listening to their crap that they were trying to feed me, we were able to all come together and try to figure this thing out together. But that's the only way. But no program has helped us. No one has tried to help us. And the ones that act like they're going to help, they all bail on us.
Yeah, once the major veteran organizations that want to help, they do good for awareness, and I think they may do good for like fixing a travel pay or something on a real minor level, or if you're just getting into it, they may help you get your VA card. But once they see the extent of what our situation is, they don't want any part of it.
And then we go for the reevaluation of the program, which you have to be there for 3 hours. They talk to me and Jerry together, $100. I'm sick of watching my husband suffer on the floor. And so we just decided that's what we were going to do. And so when we got here, that's what I was expecting, a $1,400 loss. A couple months later, they come in and they check the house and everything's fine. And then we go for the reevaluation of the program, which you have to be there for 3 hours. They talk to me and Jerry together for 30 minutes, and then they took him by himself for 2 hours. He didn't want to go. I asked if I could go with him. They refused. He was very upset, but he went ahead and went back. But prior to him going, I had this paper that stated that Jerry needed 24-hour care, and this is from his primary care provider outside the VA. Mm-hmm. And I asked her if she could take that and please make a copy, because I was instructed by the lady prior to this lady, and she said, yeah. This lady said, no, I don't need that paper. And I was like, just really hateful, and I said, well, I know you think you know everything, but may I tell you right now, just before you get out of my sight with my husband and the dog, if she cries or whines, that means he's gonna have a seizure. And she said, she's like, okay. And so the other lady that was with her, very nice, they took Jerry back, and they were gone for like 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I'm like getting very anxious. And so when they come out, he just clings to me, very upset, and kept saying, they kept trying to trick me. They kept trying to ask me questions over and over again that we've already answered together, and then I'd answer something that they asked me, and it's like they didn't like my answer, and they wanted me to give them something else. He said, so I don't know what's going on. He said, but I feel really sick. And I said, okay, well, I did not put 2 and 2 together. This lady told me, she said, thank you so much for telling us about the dog. It came in handy. And I thought, okay. And so I got him out of there. We had one more stop we had to make within the VA for the last 30-minute evaluation of him. And he did that, and then we left. And prior to getting into, right before we got into Colorado Springs, he had a seizure, and I had to pull over because he was locked to the side and I couldn't see his face, and he was making some noises. He didn't come out of that until we got almost to the 132. And I got to thinking about it, you know, when he says, I don't feel good or I feel sick, it's usually he's had a seizure or he's going to have one pretty quickly. He didn't have one. So whenever I spoke to them, I said, I want to know if my husband had a seizure. Well, you'll have to get the medical records. And I said, somebody should be telling me this. Well, you'll have to get the medical records. You'll have to get a signed release. And I said, that's a bunch of baloney. Well, she told me that she would let me know the following day where we stood with the caregiver program. Thursday came, no word. Friday came, no word. Saturday, I had my daughter check them out. Saturday when we got that, we had the denial letter. So Monday morning, I called because I was really mad that she took the easy way out and sent a letter because she saw my husband. So I called her and I said, hello, Cheryl, didn't receive the letter. Can you tell me what's going on? She goes, well, yeah, it's in the mail. And I said, no, I want you to tell me what that letter says. And she said, well, you have been denied. And I said, what do you mean denied? So we've been dropped in the caregiver program to a different level? She said, no, man, you've been kicked out of the caregiver program. I said, what the hell for? She said, well, you're not meeting his needs. His service connection of PTSD does not match his symptoms. I said, what are you saying? She said, no, ma'am, his seizures and all that, those aren't service connected. And so we can't do anything about it. And it seems to that's what our biggest concern is. Well, you know, we know he has PTSD, and that is a concern, but when you have to live within this body every single day, that's going to be the first thing you ask is, what the hell is with my seizures, and what's going on with this movement disorder, and what do I have to do to fix it? That's what we always ask every time. We know he's got severe PTSD, but the thing is what is all this other? If it is psychogenic manifesting from the PTSD, okay, we get it. But some of these seizures are not psychogenic. Some of these are grand mal seizures. You're not having grand mal seizures as psychogenic seizures, as far as I know. But you know what? I've never even had anyone tell me what kind of seizures he's having. Anything that he has going on, I have been researching since 2010. Anything that he has happened to him, I have to figure it out on my own. The absent seizure, you know, the staring off. Oh, okay, yep, he does that. That's an absent seizure. I don't get any direct anything from these doctors as to what's wrong with him. I don't get it. So no, we're getting no help from them.